You're listening to AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. That's me. Thank you for joining me today, making me just a small part of your day. You know that I appreciate you. It is NBA Finals Eve. Cavs, Warriors, 2 years in a row. And we'll talk about it. We'll talk about exactly what's going to be different from last year besides the obvious Kevin Love, Kyrie Irving in this series. What's going to be different this year from last year? What's going to be the same? I have a lot of opinions on that. I got a few opinions on the SEC, Nick Saban, Jim Harbaugh going back and forth in a war of words that is not befitting two grown men coaching football teams, but instead is more befitting of two high schoolers. Like we just keep going back and forth on this stuff. And I blame Harbaugh more than Saban because Saban didn't seem like he was trying to offend Jim Harbaugh. But Jim Harbaugh does the thing that Jim Harbaugh does where he just likes to draw attention to himself. He's just a lightning rod, and he is a lightning rod on purpose. And so now, I've got questions about Jim Harbaugh. Always have had questions about Jim Harbaugh. Not in the NFL, really, because that's when you're dealing with professionals, you're fine. You be who you are. But when you are with college students and you are being paid to be the man in that building and the students are the students in that building, it would befit you more to act like a grown-up, to act like some kind of adult, which Jim Harbaugh is totally cool with not being anything like. So we'll get into all of that. Before we jump in there, I'd like to give thoughts and prayers to those suffering from the lockdown at UCLA. There was a shooting there. It was reported earlier today. There was an active shooter on campus and in what appears to be a murder-suicide situation. So just thoughts and prayers go out to those families involved. And let's tell you about the platforms. Where can you reach us? Where can we reach you? I recommend Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, which you can find the links to all of those social media on hotnewstalkradio.com. Hotnewstalkradio.com, home of AM 1240 on the internet. You can stream all of the programming 24/7, 365. Sean Hannity, Mike Gallagher, The Herd with Colin Cowherd, The David Tulis Show, Best Shot with our news director, Russell Stroud, and, of course, Clutch with Keon Rose, starring Keon Rose. 6 to 7, we do this. And you can go back and check all of our classic episodes on youtube.com/Hot News Talk Radio. You can also stream everything on Facebook. Bet you didn't know that. You can stream everything on Facebook. And I highly recommend using the TuneIn Radio app. Again, that's the TuneIn Radio app. Search it in your favorite app store. Search Hot News Talk Radio in the app. Give us a favorite. Press play, and you'll have Hot News Talk Radio everywhere you go. Want to talk a little bit about this satellite cam thing, right? Because we're all tired of it. If you had to put it up there on a list of stories just being slowly beaten to death, satellite cams are right up there with Deflategate. Deflategate is about as tired a thing as is on this earth, and possibly any story involving the Warriors, because I think that Steph Curry is receiving a lot of backlash at this point now because he's been so consistently good for so long that we no longer are surprised by what it is that he's doing. We're now growing annoyed. So those are the top three things that nobody wants to hear about anymore. But satellite cams are interesting because they're legitimately annoying. At first, you didn't want to hear about satellite cams because you didn't understand exactly what it was that they were. Then once you learned what they were, you're like, okay, I see the problem here. And then maybe you were on a side for or against satellite cams. I honestly don't care. My issue was that we kept talking about satellite cams and throwing the college athletes in the middle like somehow we were trying to protect the student athlete by either being for or against satellite cams. You weren't. You don't care. Stop throwing the kids in the middle of it. That's one. That's the thing that I don't really like about being on either side of this issue. And now that you know what it is and you've heard it for a little while, now it's just too much. Too much satellite cam talk. And every week or every month there's a new version of the story. First, the SEC votes to make satellite cams illegal. The NCAA, all the conferences vote on it. They agree. Satellite cams are illegal. Then the NCAA makes some backtracking in that situation. And then they're like, you know what? Actually, satellite camps, they're legal. We were wrong. Okay. And then now you've got Jim Harbaugh and Nick Saban in a war of words on satellite camps, which is that, Nick Saban is like, this is not what's great for the game, which I believe Saban on that. Saban is about what's great for the game. He's trying to leave a legacy in a game that he loves coaching. It's not great for the game. You bring in all of these third parties that are basically trying to make money off of the kids. And I am all for that, right? Like less people trying to make money off of student athletes. Because it doesn't reduce how much money they pay Nick Saban to have other people involved. So this is not something that he gains an advantage out of. Doesn't want more people involved with, well, we hosted a camp here, so now I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to talk to a guy that's at a satellite camp. He put it on, so I'm not talking to the player, I'm talking to the guy, and the guy's making money. And I think it's just a whole weird, confusing thing, right? Nick Saban doesn't like that. He made sure to say in his comments that, I don't really care about what Jim Harbaugh thinks or tweets. I say what I think is best for college football and the players. Nick Saban was not trying to say that, Nick Saban or that Jim Harbaugh was, but basically wasn't trying to go after him. He wasn't trying to say that Harbaugh was wrong. Just that, I don't agree with him, and I don't agree with him on this subject matter. Of course, the word gets back to, in the he said world that we live in, the word gets back to Jim Harbaugh, and then Jim Harbaugh, fires back. And you're just like, man, how long are they going to keep fighting? Just stop it. And Harbaugh fires back, but Jim Harbaugh loves this stuff. He loves the drama. He's like some kind of CW watching teenager. I just don't understand his stance on this. But he likes it. He must like it. For a person to be involved in the limelight of this as much as he's been involved in it, there's got to be some pleasure that he's getting from this. Right? He's just running his mouth constantly. And, how many coaches is he going to offend and go after? Jim Harbaugh going after Dabo Swinney, going after Nick Saban, going after Hugh Freeze. Nick Saban is a legend. He's the best coach that's coaching college football right now. Jim, cut it out. Just cut it out. That's all I'm saying. Is that too much to ask? Because I'm annoyed with this, and I'm starting to think that the person that I need to be blaming for continually bringing satellite camps and this redone overtread story over and over and over again into my life is Jim Harbaugh. I'm starting to dislike Jim Harbaugh. I might be late to that particular party. The San Francisco 49ers were there first. I can see why they fired him. Like, he's a great coach. They haven't been good since he's been fired. Jim Harbaugh has not been at a place where he hasn't brought success there. When he leaves, sometimes you drop off a lot. That place has not been as successful since Jim Harbaugh left. That is a fact. However, I can see why they fired him. He's annoying. He's a gnat. And if you think Jim Harbaugh is great for college football, then I don't know what to tell you. If you're the guy that thinks that drama and talking and yakking is good for college football, I don't know what to tell you. Because you know what's good for college football? Alabama. Just playing games. You know what's good for college football? Clemson. You know what's not great for college football? Jim Harbaugh's mouth. We spend all of our time talking about him and it, and not about the schedule that's coming up, any of these games. We're talking about satellite camps, a subject that, by the way, we know we don't want to be talking about, but we have to, because every time something happens, Jim Harbaugh always has something to say. And Jim Harbaugh can't say anything like a normal person where you just say what you have to say free of drama without calling names of other people. Jim Harbaugh is a guy that's like, you know what? I'm going to drag everybody in this with me. It's unfortunate. It's so crappy of him to do that. And he knows what he's doing. Okay? And it's not about helping recruiting. It's because Jim Harbaugh just likes to talk and hear himself talk and hear us reacting to him talking. So annoying. You're listening to AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. Satellite camps. We're done with them finally. I hope. I hope this is the final satellite camp story because there isn't anything left to talk about for this. Like, you know what the issue is. It's to all the conferences in the South, the ACC and the SEC, and the Big 12 to not have satellite camps. It's to the advantage of all the conferences in the North, the Big 10, Pac-12 out west, the Northwest out there, to have it. That's it. Like, there's no issue here. That's it. So what are we talking about? Like, what are we talking about every time this horrible story comes back? Because it's starting to get repetitive. And again, lost in the shuffle are the student athletes who aren't getting paid for any of this stuff. And the only time that they ever have power is in this phase where they haven't decided what school to go to yet. Then you've got guys like Jim Harbaugh trying to bend over backwards for him, and in the process, just making a fool of himself. Just coach football, man. You know, go out there, recruit. If satellite camps are legal, go to them. If they're not legal, don't do it. The end. Like, there doesn't have to be a story here. And this is one that's not on the media. This isn't one that's on the fans, right? Like, we're not all getting into this trying to run with a silly story. Jim Harbaugh is powering almost all of this exclusively based on his name, based on who he is and his reputation, and just based on the fact that he's really good at talking and saying stuff. It's not unlike a boxer or an MMA fighter that's really good at talking. Jim Harbaugh is the Floyd Mayweather, is the Conor McGregor of college football. The only thing is, college football is already big. Doesn't need Jim Harbaugh to talk about it, to make this big. College football is already big. And Michigan Wolverines football, already big. Doesn't need help. If Michigan wins football games, they're a traditional power. They don't need help. They don't need Jim Harbaugh to run his mouth, to get more recruits, to come to Michigan. People know what Michigan is already. This idea that Jim Harbaugh just yakking away is going to bring you recruits. How? You know what Michigan football is already. Like, there's nothing that Butch Jones can say right now to bring people to Tennessee. Tennessee's a traditional power. They start winning some big games, people are going to go to Tennessee. Georgia starts winning some games, people are going to go to Georgia. Like, you know what those schools are. Florida State. When they're up, you know who they are. When they're down, you're still aware. And there's nothing that Jimbo Fisher can say to make you more aware of Florida State. They're a traditional power. So to that end, what on earth is Jim Harbaugh doing? Because let's get this straight. They're not changing their stance on satellite camps. So Jim Harbaugh, who is he talking for? It can't be college football as a whole, because college football is already wildly popular. All the people that are going to watch college football are already watching college football. Can't be Michigan football. Michigan and Ohio State, their rivalry is epic. People know the history of the Michigan Wolverines. Okay, they've produced Tom Brady. Like, we know who these people are. I don't understand this idea. Jim Harbaugh's he's got to talk. He's just got to say what he's going to say. It's good for Michigan football. No, it's not. It's not helping anything. You can't make a gigantic brand a bigger brand. Not by just talking about it. Like that, there's a point where talking works. If you're a local business, word of mouth is great. Radio advertising is better. Adding more advertising, etc. You expand, but there's a point where you are just so big and just so known that talking does not add anything. Okay? If you're already Sears, if you're McDonald's, you don't get any more help from word of mouth. The people that are going to eat at McDonald's already eat there. Okay? Now, if you're a small restaurant, you know, you need people to talk about you. You need to be out there in front of a camera talking. You need to be in front of a microphone saying something over the air, on a billboard, in a magazine. When you're Michigan, when you're the Wolverines, you don't need any help. You don't need Jim Harbaugh. It's unbelievable to me. It's actually unbelievable to me. I know I say that a lot. I say that like near daily. But it is. You're listening to AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio Clutch with Keon Rose. We're going to stick inside college football world. Just take a little downshift to talk about Vanderbilt, because there have been some complete scouting reports of Vanderbilt released, and Vanderbilt football is not back. I'm not going to stand here and tell you Vanderbilt football has returned. It hasn't. It's they're still not great, but Vanderbilt is looking a whole lot better, and they've been improving over the past few years. They couldn't score any points last season, but they actually that's not true. They couldn't score at the beginning of last season, but they made a quarterback change and started being able to move the ball up the field a little bit more consistently. And there's one thing that you cannot say about the Vanderbilt Commodores last season, which is that they were bad at defense. They're actually very, very good at defense. And that's a frightening team that's coming up here. We might start to see the SEC East coming back. Am I crazy? I don't think I'm crazy. Here's the thing about the SEC East. This year, it's Tennessee. They are far and away the best team in the East. Probably could struggle with Georgia, but that's it. Like, there's nobody that's really a threat to Tennessee. If you don't pick Tennessee to win the East this year, you're just being a contrarian on purpose. And you know who you are. You're that guy that's picking the Cavs to win the finals. You're being a contrarian, and you're being a contrarian on purpose. Okay? You're not being realistic. But in the next few years, we're looking at a Georgia team, Jacob Eason, if he turns into something special, and all the early indications say that he will. Kirby Smart pushes Georgia to that next level, especially on the defensive side of the football, which they will be good on defense. Then it's going to be hard to say that Georgia's not going to be in competition. Vanderbilt can find a way to score points because they already defend really well. Like, a lot of the games that they end up losing were like really awful, hideous games. But that's a good sign if you're Vanderbilt. Hideous games means the other team didn't score well either. Okay, so that defense is doing something. I like that. I do. I really am excited about the SEC East. I mean, you're not going to be, beating Alabama. And I have to talk about Florida too, because Florida was really good last year before the Will Grier incident happened. They ended up losing Will Grier, right? They were really good. Jim McElwain, proving to be a really good coach. I don't think that anybody thought he was going to turn Georgia or Florida around as quickly as he has. They have started coming back in a way that is surprising to me. Now, defensively, they lacked a lot of punch at the end of the season, but like when they lost some games after starting out well, I think that'll deflate any team, not just Florida. The SEC East in the next 2, 3, 4 years, that's going to be a scary division in the SEC. I don't know if that makes them in weight better than the West so far, because the West is really good, topped off, of course, by Alabama. But the SEC East could be really, really fantastic to watch. You're listening to AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. There's a pattern with the Cavs and the Warriors, and I think I found it. Next.
I'm blowing everything up. We're starting over. I'm doing a new show. I want guys who push it to the middle of the table and go over the top. Take a risk, fail miserably. I'm right, and I'm not wrong, and I'll never back down. Conflict works. Allow it.
It's The Herd with Colin Cowherd. Right here and everywhere. Noon Eastern.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds. We'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240. You and I know that real men are prepared for anything. You know what I'm talking about because you're a Take Charge guy. Everyone's talking about Grimm's Tactical, featuring first responder gear, survival gear and equipment, Voodoo Tactical, Leapers. For personal protection, Grimm's Tactical features non-lethal personal protection gear, AR/AK parts, knives, canning and dehydrating equipment. If you hike and camp, Grimm's Tactical has got what you're looking for, bags and packs. And for your side piece, concealed carry holsters for men and women. Plus, Grimm's Tactical carries a wide variety of freeze-dried food. Wise Mountain House, Backpacker's Pantry, Grimm's Tactical, where law enforcement shops, Safari Lane, Blackhawk, 511. First responder gear at Grimm's Tactical. Grimm's Tactical, 8115 East Brainerd Road, in the shopping center next to the Walmart Marketplace. Look for the Mighty Mini U-Haul office. Grimm's Tactical is right next door. Grimm's Tactical, 8115 East Brainerd Road.
Just imagine not a cloud in the sky. It's the perfect day on the water. You could be enjoying boating with friends or wetting your line to catch a fish. Or maybe it's just you and that special someone on a sunset cruise. All of this without the hassle of owning a boat with your membership in the Carefree Boat Club. As you relax and spend time with the ones you care about, you have the peace of mind of knowing you're a member of the Carefree Boat Club. Weekends were made for relaxing and being hassle-free, just like the Carefree Boat Club. Let us take the worry out of boat ownership. No matter if you enjoy fishing, skiing, cruising the lake, or maybe even an overnight adventure, we have a boat for you at the Carefree Boat Club. Start making memories today. Call 423-619-7156 to join. Boating season is here, so do not wait. Call now, 423-619-7156. Carefree Boat Club is located at the Harbor Lights Marina, 9718 Hickson Pike.
Finding just the right place to live can be a daunting task. Stop your search. In Chattanooga, the place to live is Cross Creek Villas for under $1,000 and available for immediate move-in. You can enjoy this 2-bedroom split layout, over 1,000 square feet, 9-foot ceilings, an extra large patio or balcony. And don't forget to ask about their preferred employer program. Cross Creek Villas is a gated community, offering a 24-hour fitness facility, a beautiful pool and hot tub, and Cross Creek Villas is pet-friendly. Stroll the pet park with your best friend and enjoy the free use of their business center and clubhouse. Plus, if you mention you heard this on the radio, your application fee is free. Cross Creek Villas, close to downtown off of Highway 58. Go to crosscreekchattanooga.com. That's crosscreekchattanooga.com or call 894-0446. That's 894-0446. Redefine the way you live at Cross Creek Villas. Go to crosscreekchattanooga.com or call 894-0446. Cross Creek Villas.
Any spotty showers will diminish through the nighttime. Muggy overnight. Lows into the mid and upper 60s. For Thursday and Friday, continued partly cloudy, hot, and humid, but a few more widely scattered afternoon showers and thunderstorms will develop each day with highs 88 to 90. Tired of the pressures and hassles of car shopping? Come see where more people are making the short drive to Jackson Chevrolet Buick GMC in Lafayette or online at jacksongm.com. That's Jackson Chevy Buick GMC in Lafayette. And I'm Sporting 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Ward. On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio with your Hot News Now update. The Chattanooga police are investigating a drive-by shooting that happened on Glass Street at 10:30 p.m. in front of Sandy's Mini Market. The two victims have minimal injuries. They were taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. The Chattanooga police is asking anyone with any information to call 423-698-2525. The investigation is still ongoing. Police and neighbors say that two women broke into a house by crawling through the doggy door. They were arrested while inside of the house, hiding inside of a closet. The two women were searched and were found to have prescription medication, food, and other household items which were from that house. Witnesses told officers that the owner of the house was at the hospital for rehabilitation after a surgery. Both women have been charged with aggravated burglary. In 30 days, you'll be able to buy wine at local grocery stores in the Chattanooga area. The city council polled a vote, and you will be able to buy wine here soon. If it's going on in the Tennessee Valley, it's going on Hot News Talk Radio.
Hot News Talk 1240.
More news out of Baylor. Ken Starr, who was the president at Baylor, he got demoted. He got removed from his position as president. He was demoted to chancellor, was still able to teach his law class. He resigned today. And I don't know. Usually you end up with these interviews that end up happening. Ken Starr did an interview today with Outside the Lines on ESPN. You try and do these interviews to spin the story in a different direction, possibly slap a different time, a different narrative on the timeline of the way things went down. And Ken Starr's interview, which is supposed to spin your opinion of him into maybe a slightly more positive one, because I don't know that you can come back from what it was that he did. But he will still be continuing to teach, but he'll be resigning as chancellor at Baylor. But like these things are supposed to spin your opinion of that person in a way that is positive. Maybe you don't rewrite the narrative, but you change it a little bit. You line it up with something a little bit better than what it is. What you have here with Ken Starr is a guy whose interview is not affecting the way that I think about him at all. In fact, it's making it worse. I don't like Ken Starr. I don't like him. It's one thing if all of this stuff happened and you just owned it. Okay? Cover up worse than crime. It'll always be true. It will never not be true. If something goes wrong and it goes wrong under your watch, just own up to it. Just fess up to it. Just admit it. Ken Starr is sitting here and he's saying things along the lines of, here's one of his quotes. That one of his quotes was that he said he was behind a veil of ignorance, was one of his quotes. The president of a university, the person in charge of running the university, cannot be said to be inside a veil of ignorance. Was that a self-imposed veil of ignorance? Did you create that veil of ignorance? Because you can't be out of the loop. You're the president. I mean, think about Barack Obama and everything that you like or don't like about him. Whatever it is that's happening during his time as president, you know one thing that he can't say? Well, I was under a veil of ignorance. He can't say that because you're the president. If you don't know, you're supposed to know. Figure it out. It's your job to know. The veil of ignorance argument, I just am not buying that. Because that's willful ignorance then. If that's the case. Because there's no way that all these things are happening on campus and you don't know. And then he said that he believes females were safe enough on the Baylor campus. And this is from Joe Shad, who had the sit-down interview with Ken Starr on Outside the Lines. And he tweeted some of the parts of the interview. He said that he believes that females were safe enough on the Baylor campus. Notes that the incidents took place off of campus. Except that's a lie. Enough of those assaults. He said all of the sexual assaults he knew of were off campus. But Baylor PD data lists 10 reports of sexual assaults since 2010 in the dorms and Baylor University housing. Which, for those of you who want to know the geography of a college campus, the dorms and the housing would be on campus. Yes, they would be on campus. So you can't run that out there. The ones that you knew of were off campus. When the numbers are here showing in 2012, there were 2 forcible sexual offenses reported. In 2013, there were 6. There were 4 instances of rape cited in 2014. There was 1 aggravated assault in 2013 and 1 robbery in 2014. Okay, so like the numbers here are not telling you that this stuff is happening off campus. This is the stuff that is reported to have happened on campus. Furthermore, Ken Starr completely disagrees, quote unquote, that Baylor created a perception that football was above the rules, calls Art Briles a father figure, which again, Art Briles was a father figure. That I'm not going to sit there and deny. He was. If the players thought that was what he was about, then, that makes sense. He's filling that role in their lives while they're on the campus. But did Baylor put football above the rules? You're darn right they did. They absolutely did. They completely put football above the rules. And not the NCAA rules. Ole Miss put football above the NCAA rules. Baylor put football above federal government rules. And you know what? That's some dangerous situation to be in. I'm glad that I don't have to be the person dealing with any and all of that. You broke federal law. You put football above federal law. When someone has been sexually assaulted, you're required to report that. And there's no way that you don't know that. I know that. And I'm not an administrator at a college or university. If someone is being sexually assaulted and you're in a position of power at a college, university, high school, middle school, hospital, report it because it's your job. You have to. It's not optional. It's not, well, I don't know if I can get involved in this. That is your job. Federally, Baylor put football above that. Football. And to say that they didn't is to say then that they just didn't care about federal law then. They just didn't care. Because either way, they weren't following the rules. So either you put football above it or you didn't. Then at that point, you just didn't care. Can't have that being an option, quite frankly. Ken Starr's interviews, just the more that he talks, the more that you're just like, what? And then he said the reason he stepped down as chancellor was because of his conscience, which would be hilarious if this did not involve sexual assault. It would be funny. Because to not have a conscience previous to this moment, but to suddenly have a conscience after all the damage that's been done and been unreported, after you sold out for football, to suddenly grow a conscience and go, maybe I shouldn't be chancellor. That's just silly. That is silly, and I don't buy it. And nobody should buy it because it doesn't make any sense. You're listening to AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. I'm just disappointed, man. I'm disappointed in him. I'm disappointed in Baylor. They had the basketball stuff happen too. I mean, it's just at some point you've just got to look in the mirror and go, we're not doing this correctly. And stop. And then stop doing it. And presumably before you get caught. Before it becomes a storm. But that would require morals. And you have to have those first. Golly, man. Let's talk about the NBA Finals before I get really mad. I'm just kind of mad now. Let's just talk about some basketball. I'm going to talk about the NBA Finals again tomorrow, but there are some interesting things going around the Cavaliers and the Warriors that when I've been talking to people about what the outcome of this game is going to be, people are unsure, which I find to be strange because the Warriors beat Cleveland last year, and I was going to wait till tomorrow to make the pick. They're going to beat Cleveland again this year, maybe for an entirely different set of reasons, but they're going to beat them. Because Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love are not defenders. They're turnstiles on your way to the basket. They're not going to stop you from going to the basket. And they don't have the Cavaliers, the superior length combined with speed that the Thunder had. Because the Warriors beat the Thunder because they were making shots that are ridiculous. They were making shots that for anybody else on earth would be bad shots. Yet Cleveland's not going to be able to force Golden State to do that. Golden State's not going to need Cleveland to force them to do that because Cleveland can't do that. When you're the Warriors, you've got a wonderful thing going on. And Amin El Hassan was talking about this earlier today. And he's a great basketball analyst. I really like the way he thinks about basketball. But he's talking about the Warriors having the luxury of having their best offensive guys and their best defensive guys be the same guys. Right? Best offensive guys and best defensive guys, with the exception of Steph, who he really plays well inside of a team concept and you can hide his defensive deficiencies. Best offensive guys and best defensive guys are the same guys. This isn't the case for the Cavaliers. The best offensive guys for Cleveland went down last year. And so they had to play with the best defensive guys. And that series was closed because Dellavedova, really good defender. Iman Shumpert, really good defender. Tristan Thompson, really good defender. Timofey Mozgov, pretty solid defender. You're not relying on any of these guys to score, and certainly none of these guys to make their own shot. You can't do that. You can't win like that. They're not a scoring team. Well, you would think, right, that having Kevin Love, who's an offensive threat, having Kyrie Irving, who's an offensive threat, having those guys on the floor gives Cleveland a much better chance of winning the series this year than last year, except that the two offensive guys on your team, two of the three best offensive players on your team, are complete defensive liabilities entirely. They couldn't stop a soul. You pick four friends and see how that goes for you. Kevin Love is not a great defender. He's not. In fact, he's horrible. You can't play Kevin Love in the fourth quarter. It was a huge controversy when it first happened in the playoffs, and then it happened a couple more times. You're looking in the fourth quarter for Cleveland, especially in those games 3 and 4 in Toronto. You're just looking. Where's Kevin Love? Can't find him. Yeah, you can't find him. He's an awful defender. We're hiding him on the bench. He's not going to be able to defend a soul. So everything that you gain on offense by having Kyrie and Kevin, you lose it all back on defense. And Steph has one of those third quarters. You know the third quarters. Steph Curry has one of those third quarters, the one where he goes and scores 15 points in 2.5 minutes. One of those on a personal 17-0 run. One of those third quarters, the game's over. And Cleveland does not have the firepower to come back from that. They don't. Okay, and they had a situation where, like, I almost think that the defensive unit would be better. The defensive unit might be a better unit to play this year. But Cleveland doesn't have the depth. They don't have the strength. They don't have the speed. They have some of the length required to push the Warriors, but they don't have the defense at all. And I'm interested in seeing how Tyronn Lue handles this, because he is completely overmatched here and undergunned. You're listening to AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. That's me. Thank you for joining me today, making me just a small slice of your day. You know that I appreciate you. The SEC has got a list of potential 1,000-yard runners. And look, the more that I live in the South, the more that I have come to appreciate SEC football. I watched Big 12 football growing up. I lived in Texas. Watched A&M when they were in the Big 12. I'm a Longhorn fan. Texas Tech was pretty good then too. I love watching Big 12 football, but there is something about the SEC and the smash mouth style that's here. Did I say smash mouth? Smash mouth. Smash mouth too. There's something about that style that is highly entertaining to watch. And when you've got running backs that are just brutal, those are the best ones to watch. Like I like the guys that can scamper, guys that are a little bit shifty, but give me Leonard Fournette any day of the week. Or whoever it is that Arkansas is running with this year. Give me Nick Chubb any day of the week. I'll take it. Guy's fun to watch. Give me Jalen Hurd any day of the week. It is a blast to watch those guys run because literally they blast people. Like they just run through guys. All of them. All of them. That Tennessee-Georgia game last year was a ton of fun to watch. If you're talking about matchups that I am looking forward to this college football season, that's got to be one of them because in the first half of that game, Nick Chubb was impossible to tackle. Just impossible to tackle. You couldn't bring him down at all. Like he was just a terror. And Jalen Hurd is a guy that I don't think that anybody expected him to be quite this good. And I understand that you've got Alvin Kamara there to just kind of change the pace, the scampering. But Jalen Hurd has got a little bit of wiggle to him, but more than he wiggles, he veers. And so he takes angles away from guys that they would normally have. And then when he can't take the angle away, he runs through you. I'm very excited to watch SEC football, and I'm very excited to watch those guys run. And oh my gosh. And speaking of LSU and Leonard Fournette, is LSU going to waste the season of Leonard Fournette with Brandon Harris at quarterback? Because I don't know how far they can go. Legitimately, that is a good college football team, and with the talent that they have on there, they could be a great college football team. Except Brandon Harris is the quarterback. And I don't know if I trust that guy. I like watching the spring training game. I'm going back through it, right? Watching the spring training game. And I'm like, this guy is so average. And you can win with game manager type quarterbacks. You can. And he's quick enough, I suppose, if you wanted to really go option with him. But that's not. When you've got Leonard Fournette, like you just turn around and give that guy the ball. You don't need to do all the read option stuff to try and get him free. Just give that guy the ball. He will destroy on his own. Just run him between the tackles. So Brandon Harris had such an average spring game that maybe he could surprise us all. Les Miles is talking about him being a whole lot better, but I just think it's really strange. LSU just hasn't had a quarterback in so long, and that's just odd because of how well that they can recruit and how talented that team has been time and time again. Sure, you've got the disappointing years, but the years that are good seem always hampered by the fact that they can't throw. That when it's time to just go down the field, like they can't do it at all. And I see that almost as a parallel with Tennessee, in as much as I need to see Josh Dobbs consistently do it. You see him do it sometimes. But you don't see him do it often enough. And I'm more worried about Harris than Dobbs because you don't see Harris really do it, like ever. Make accurate passes down the field, like when it's time to get back into a game. If you're ahead in the game, Leonard Fournette. If it's a close game, Leonard Fournette. But when you're behind, you have to throw. And they killed themselves so many times last year because they needed Brandon Harris to make plays passing the ball, and he couldn't do it. And I don't know what you got to do to get that guy the ability to find open receivers downfield with a degree of accuracy that makes sense, because he doesn't have a really strong arm. You know what I mean? Like, he's not one of those guys that, maybe he's not accurate, but he's got a strong arm. He's not Cardell Jones. Cardell Jones may not be the most accurate guy, may not understand the offense mentally the best, but that guy's got a howitzer attached to his arm. So you're okay with that. I mean, you can make some plays there. Play action fake. Read option. Do whatever. But with Brandon Harris, not only does he lack the accuracy on those short to intermediate throws, you worry that he's not actually capable of making the deep ball. It's a legitimate concern that could hold LSU back. A team that's got enough talent on here to contend. And I can't give that to them this year because I don't know if Brandon Harris can get the ball down the field for the LSU Tigers. You've been listening to Clutch with Keon Rose here on AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. Thank you for joining me today, giving me just a small slice of your day. You know that I appreciate you. Tune in tomorrow at 6. We do this every day from 6 to 7. Remember, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. Stay clutch. I'll see you in 24 hours. Stick around. Free Talk Live next.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
You feel better now.